On this episode, we talk with Sueching Chin, a tech journalist, MC, and television host who chats about technology in Thailand.
So, if you're interested in hearing how young Thais are using technology to shape Thailand's future, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Well, sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who followed a friend to Thailand in 2001, and after 18 years is about ready to start importing old Dutch ketchup potato chips from the motherland.
Somebody's got to do it. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 17 years ago, fell in love with the meta-tolerance of Thai people who are so tolerant, they allowed Japanese-only bars in Bangkok, and so I never left.
Right, you have to listen to the bonus episode for patrons for some more insight into that.
It's true. It's true. I'm not lying.
Well, we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, a guy by the name of Atlan, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking about some of the ways Thais are weaving technology and social media into their daily lives to start a small business, make jokes, and stick it to the man to hear why Atlan is either a philosopher, a singer, or a wizard.
Whoa, sounds like an interesting guy.
Yeah.
You can learn more about becoming a patron on our website. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about current events in Thailand and basically whatever else comes into our minds. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we read an email from a listener who gave us some reasoning behind last week's bonus topic about why Japanese bars often won't let dirty gaijin like us inside. I also told the story about my homemade air purifier, which, believe it or not, works shockingly well. And we discussed how anyone who uses a stored value card on the BTS will now have to show ID to top up their card. We also did a quick episode of Thai Mythbusters where we discussed, is Bangkok tap water really unhealthy to drink? And I guess you have to check out the bonus episode to find out the answer.
Yeah, and if I'm not here next week, then you'll know why, because I have promised to drink tap water for the next week. So we'll see what goes down there. Man, we got to keep tabs on these bonus episodes. They're starting to become longer than the regular episodes.
You're right. Well, you know, like our patrons, they are quality people and they deserve quality content.
That is right. That is correct. That's right. All right, well, on this main episode, we are very happy to welcome a woman by the name of Sueching Chin, who you may have seen on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or television, where she stays in touch with her huge following. She's a TV host, a tech columnist, an editor, an MC, an all-around tech geek who has her fingers on the pulse of technology in Thailand. Sueching came on the show to talk about some of the interesting ways that Thais are using technology and social media to start businesses, spread news, and be creative, and what effect the ubiquity of tech and social media is having on how the younger generation of Thais see their country and its place in the global village. It was a really cool conversation, and she's really fun to talk to, so here is my conversation with Sueching Chin. All right, well, I'm sitting here in a kind of a lovely little basement cafe kind of thing in a shopping mall in Bangkok. Surprise, surprise. With Sueching. Sueching, thanks for coming on to the podcast, and nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about who you are or what you do?
I'm a tech journalist. I worked for Voice TV, which is a free TV station in Thailand for the past 8 years. I quit last year, and now I'm doing my own online media things. I report about technology, anything technology related, actually.
Yeah? Or would you describe yourself as a tech geek?
Well, sometimes, not all the time. I don't like to call myself a nerd or a geek because I feel like I'm not qualified to be a nerd yet.
That's probably a good thing. I mean, I'm full-on geek / nerd, so...
You like gadgets?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, just look at my cool little mics and cables and my little recording device thing here. Yeah, not so bad. Well, I was watching some of your videos, and we've got a couple of mutual friends in common. And you seem to be very knowledgeable about technology and really tied into that whole scene in Thailand. And what got me started thinking about talking to someone like this was that I read a story about an interesting new trend in America. And that trend is that Instagram is now being used as sort of a gatekeeper for a lot of house parties by youths, millennials, teenagers, punks. And the way it works is that, say I'm having a party and I call my Instagram account Greg's Party and I send you an invite, and that's your entry into the party. If you don't have an invite, if you don't have a friend request from me, you can't get into the party. Which I thought was kind of not how they envisioned Instagram working, but that's how people have adapted it. And I started to think, is there anything like that in Thailand? Do young Thais use technology in any way similar to that? Because we always hear Thailand is one of the most social media crazy countries in the world. So I thought it would be interesting to get into that with someone knowledgeable, and that's you. I'm talking a lot now, but can you just kind of give me a quick overview of how young Thais see technology? Is it a force for good? Is it a positive thing?
I think when you mention the word technology in Thailand, a lot of people would think about social media and smartphone. That's the first things that will come to mind. And I think you have realized that living in Thailand, you see a lot of people, especially younger people, they tend to be addicted to their smartphone. You would be walking on the street, bumping into people that, they keep looking down at their smartphone.
Right.
That's how we are right now. And in terms of the way that we use technology in a creative way, I can think of one example. A few years ago, when we started getting crazy over Instagram, a lot of people started selling things on Instagram. It's not really the platform to sell things. Even though lately they have launched some kind of feature that would make it easier for you to explore products in the pictures. But back then, there weren't really that many features for that. So Thai people got very creative. Some of the merchants online, they would post pictures on Instagram. And if you're interested in any of their product, what you have to do is you have to read their bio. And then you have to add line, as we say, add line and say hi. So instead of just selling the products and getting all the process done in Instagram, they move it to line. If you like the product, if you like what you see, you add me online, and then we can talk about the price, we can talk about the delivery process online.
So Instagram is like the gallery, and line is the communication method.
And I thought that was how it was done around the world. But then I went to this Google conference, and they talked about this. And that was in like another country. So they talk about this case study in Thailand, and they say that it was the first that they ever heard of.
Really?
Yeah. So you and I would think that this is something that's so normal in Thailand, right? But then when foreigners heard about it, they were like, wow, how did you combine the two platforms together to make it sell? That's something that's very creative.
That is very creative, and it makes sense. And I've known people who have done that, and they have a thriving small business.
Yeah.
And the only thing they need besides the product that they're selling is a phone. And that is their camera, that's their studio, that's their distribution network, that's their means of communication. So it's pretty fascinating like that. And it doesn't surprise me at all that the Thais would figure out how to do that, because they're very creative when it comes to entrepreneurial.
True, and a lot of them are small business owners, so they don't have a lot of money to start with. Another example is, I don't know if you have seen this, but we were crazy about Facebook Live for a while. Everyone did the Facebook Live, and so they actually took that idea and used it to sell stuff. One of the most famous methods to do that is, let's say if you are a woman wants to sell clothes, they can just start their Facebook Live session trying on different clothes right then and there, so that when viewers come, they can see exactly what the outfit would look like. So if you like it, you buy it right away in the comment section.
Oh, wow.
I mean, are you familiar with that?
Actually, a guy I know, his wife sells bras like that.
A Thai wife?
Yeah, and I don't think she, there's nothing salacious about it. She doesn't, take them off on camera or anything, but
right.
I don't know how it works.
But they would be wearing a tube or a tank top. It's not going to be complete naked and then changing different outfits. It's not like that.
I've never checked it out. But it sounds like she's doing all right. And that's a really interesting way to do it.
And people love that. You'd be surprised how many people shop during their working hours in the conference room. I was sitting next to this to this woman who was actually not listening to anything that was going on in the conference room, but she was looking at her phone at the Facebook session so that she can CF. That's the secret code, CF. So when you type CF in the comment section, it means that you're buying that product.
What does it mean?
Confirm.
Confirm.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
a secret language.
All right.
CF means confirm, which means that you want to buy it. If you want to cancel, you type CC. So CC is like, okay, I changed my mind. I don't want it anymore. Cancel.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
And that's interesting too, because we've all probably ordered something online that we saw in a picture, and then when it gets to your doorstep, you take it out of the box and you're like, oh God, that's not what I thought it would look like.
Yeah.
But if it's Facebook Live, you can see it actually.
can see it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yep. And people are actually wearing it for you. That's
Yeah.
not something that it doesn't happen when you go to stores.
Are there any ways that Thais are talking about technology in a negative light? Like, are there any people saying you have to watch out for this, or you got to be careful about this? Obviously, there's sort of subtle political overtones in that and monitoring overtones and things. But are there anything that's like on the tip of people's tongue right now in terms of things you need to be on the lookout for?
I would say that we don't have freedom to just say anything on the internet, especially when it comes to politics. And because of the military junta ruling the country right now and the less majesty laws, we have to be very careful what you want to put out there on the internet.
As someone who does a weekly podcast, I'm very aware of those.
Yes, and it's very dangerous. You could be sharing an article, not writing any description or anything, and you could be thrown in jail.
Yeah. So has that hyper awareness of what you say and what you do, has that restricted the creativity of...
I would say no. It actually enhances the creativity. If you have noticed during the past 4 or 5 years since the military junta started taking over the country, Thai people started to have a lot more humor when it comes to putting things online. We turn everything into memes and jokes because we don't want to sound too serious and we don't want to get into trouble. But if you turn it into memes and jokes, then everyone just has to laugh with us. And you can't really take it seriously. But the message is still out there. The incident about the deputy prime minister with his expensive watches that he cannot explain where they came from.
It, yes.
Yeah, that it's like one of the biggest jokes of 2018. Yeah, we had so much fun coming up with different memes.
But you also have to be like sly and subversive about it, right? You can't be direct.
You can't be direct. If you're direct, then you would start to be paranoid that maybe the authorities are watching you and you never know. Maybe you might get in trouble. But if you're being funny about it, and we can't get in trouble for that.
I have a story about this, and it's kind of overlaps with this, but it also is one of my most proud moments as a amateur Thai language learner. Years ago, there was a prime minister at the time. His name was Samak, and he was not very popular. He was not liked by a large percentage of the population. And in the newspaper, the political cartoons always drew Samak with a nose shaped like a shampoo, rose apple.
Yeah.
Right? So this sort of shampoo was kind of like the graphical shorthand of the prime minister. And I was at Chatuchak and I saw a guy wearing a shirt and it had a picture of a shampoo with the old style Apple logo colors, like the Apple colors, like red, green, like that. And then underneath it said small I, capital M-A-K, iMac.
Oh, that's
I won't explain the nuance of it because it's quite complicated, but anyone who speaks Thai will understand that it was a very sly insult to the prime minister.
That's
using
actually
a sort
very
of
creative.
I was so happy. I understood it. I saw the shirt and I'm like, I get that.
That means that you've been in Thailand long enough.
Yeah, it was a
and
big...
you understand Thailand's landscape.
It was a big moment for me, but it was also an interesting way that like this sort of sly little dig at authority using humor and technology in this particular case.
I think I saw the exact same T-shirt, but I did not get that.
Really?
At that time. But now that you're explaining it to me...
Well, I win.
Yeah. Congratulations.
All right. 1 for Greg, 13 billion for life. Well, I was reading something recently. I was doing a little bit of reading about this sort of topic, and I came across something that said that the World Economic Forum recently did a study that found that only 10% of Thai youths, young generation, regularly use online educational resources, which is one of the lowest rates in all of ASEAN. Even though 13% more Thais than the average want to be entrepreneurs. So it seems like there's this desire to really want to be entrepreneurial and craving technology, but there's a real sort of barrier between using technology to learn.
Right.
What do Thais think of online education? Is it seen as something that's legitimate?
I actually don't know a lot of people that are doing online education. If you don't count learning things on YouTube, and I think it's because they don't know where to look. They don't know what kind of website, what the platform that's best for online learning. So I'm not surprised that not a lot of people are learning things online. I think for a Thai young generation, when they think about learning something, the first platform that they would turn to would be YouTube, which is actually not that bad. I mean, when you come to think of it, you can learn a lot of things on YouTube, but you're just not going to be certified for any knowledge that you get.
University of YouTube?
Right.
I read a quote a while ago that said YouTube has replaced fathers.
Yeah, but that's understandable. You can learn anything.
Yeah, well, I when I started riding my bicycle, I didn't know how to change a bike tire, so I went to YouTube and I learned how to type a bike tire. And then I actually learned that, I used that skill a few weeks later when I got a flat. So it's an excellent way to learn, but like you said, there's no certification. You can't impress a potential employer by saying, well, I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
Yeah, and also there's a language barrier as well. A lot of online courses on the internet, they're all in English, and you know that not a lot of Thai young generations can speak English or understand English that well.
Right.
So that's the barrier.
Right. So we talked earlier about how social media was so popular in Thailand, and you always hear rankings every year, like Suvarnabhumi is the most Instagrammed place in the world or something like that.
Yeah, that might be the work of foreigners, actually. You take pictures of our airport and you put it up on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, it's an impressive looking airport from certain angles. But do you think that is having, or what effect do you think that is having on Thailand's younger generation as they grow up? I mean, you mentioned earlier that Thais are obsessed with their phones, and I think, a lot of times to a negative level.
Yes. I think we don't exactly know the negative effects until it happens, because the technology hasn't been here long enough for us to study the long-term effects. But you start to see a lot more of this as you go. I think a lot of Thai young generations right now think that their entire world exists inside a smartphone, and anything that they see on the social media, that represents the whole world. So that is something that's very scary, because it's not. And there is this certain thing called filter bubble, that the social media, the platform, filter everything that they think you would like, so that you are surrounded by only content that you're familiar with or that you already believe in. So this is why I feel like a lot of Thai young generation are trapped inside that bubble. They think that this is their whole world, but it's not.
Right, confirmation bias.
Yes, we have the proverb that describes that. We say "กบในกะลา," which is a frog underneath a coconut shell, which means that the frog think that this is their world, but it's actually, if you open it and if you get outside, the whole world is just it's just so much larger than that.
That's right. And that's a problem all over the world. I mean, you see what's going on in the States, the shit show that's happening over there.
Yeah.
And you see the problem in India with fake news on WhatsApp and people spreading rumors, and a crowd gathers and turns into a mob. So,
and Thai people tend to believe fake news like instantly,
do you
especially
think so?
yes,
Do you think so?
especially if it's the news online, the messaging application.
Right.
But not only younger generation, older generation, I think, are more prone to believing anything that's been passed along online.
Well, we've done shows in the past, but we did one episode where we talked about ghosts, and we have a segment on our bonus episode that we call Thai News of the Weird, where we discuss sort of a strange story about Thailand that happened that week. And in a couple of instances, we've talked about a village that has believed there's an ogre killing men in their sleep or things like that. Are these kind of stories propagated by social media as well, and through Line and things like that?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think that's the old belief. It's been going on, but now we learn more about it because of social media. This is something that we probably wouldn't have heard of back like 20 years ago. It would happen in that small village and nobody would hear about it. But now that we have social media, everything gets around quickly.
Right.
So maybe that might be the case. But yeah, we are not really immune to fake news on social media. We are not educated to cross-check the fact. We tend to believe anything that other people share. There's a lot of websites, fake websites that name themselves kind of like very similar to the legit publication.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact example, but if you see probably ข่าวสด, this might be like ข่าวสด 2, or just adding like a number or just one alphabet so that people don't notice that this is not a legit website.
Right. Is that just a matter of digital literacy, digital education?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still low in Thailand.
Okay.
But in terms of the numbers of people using Facebook and YouTube, we might be like one of the first top 10 countries, especially YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's really surprising for me to hear that the first time.
Really? So what kind of things are you working on with technology these days? What projects are keeping you busy, and what do you find that your audience asks for and responds to?
The audience usually responds to something as simple as gadget reviews. When the new iPhones come out, they want to know more about it, or any smartphone, tablets, computers. But I have been doing that for the past almost 10 years, and I find that it's getting less and less interesting for me to be reviewing gadgets. What I like to do is I like to explore technology in different aspects, like how it affects our lives, what is going to change within the next 5 or 10 years, how are we going to get ready for that kind of change. That's something that I'm very interested in, but it's not something that a lot of people like to read about, It's not as mainstream as gadget reviews.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to compete with the sexiness of a new iPhone,
Right.
Something that really interests me, and it has a lot to do with a country like Thailand, where a lot of the economy is based on manufacturing, is how automation will change the employment landscape. And you've got huge, for example, the automobile production factories down on the eastern seaboard. As robots get more complex and able to handle more complex tasks, you'll see the workforce of humans being less and less required. And in first world countries in Europe and things like that, less of a problem. But in countries like Thailand, that's going to have a huge impact over the long term. But it's hard to make that sexy and compete with like the new cool thing from whatever.
The way to make it sexy is to tell people that one day robots might kill you, just like in the movie. So that will get their attention. But that's not something that, it's for drama. It's not going to happen anytime soon. We do talk a lot about AI and robots and how they are going to take away jobs, how to prepare if you are a student right now, what kind of thing you should be learning about in order to be able to thrive in the economy in the future, so that your jobs won't be taken by robots. Something like that we are discussing on our channel.
Well, as we wrap up here, do you think that the Thai education system is adapting as necessary to these kinds of things? Like, are they looking forward to what types of technology their students will need to know by the time they graduate high school or university?
Sadly, I don't think so.
Not surprising.
Right. I know. You already know the answer, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think something like this, you need to get outside of school.
Yeah.
It's not being taught in school because the teachers themselves are probably also not familiar with the situation. They have been doing the same, they have been using the same guideline for the past probably 30 or 40 years without changing.
Yeah.
But I understand that it's hard for teachers to keep up all the time. So this is something that students also have to help themselves by trying to get those information from elsewhere.
Like your YouTube channel.
Yes, exactly. On websites.
Well, Sueching, thanks for coming on and chatting a little bit about this kind of stuff. It's really interesting to see where things are going and how Thai culture is changing and adapting, because like you said, it's very creative and able to adapt very easily. So I'm really curious as to how things are going to look in 10 or 15 years. Hopefully I'll still be here.
Thank you for having me today. It's been fun.
No problem. And where can people find you if they want to look for more?
They can go on my Facebook page, Sueching Chin, JITSUPACHIN, and you can start from there.
All right. Cool. Well, we'll put some links in our show notes.
Thank you.
Let's go and have some coffee.
Yay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was really cool talking to her, and thanks, Suechin, for coming on the show. But it's funny because she said when she was talking about how Thais are using Instagram as basically their storefront to sell everything from like bras to homemade tchotchkes and stuff like that. And I just took that for granted. But apparently, she said that they don't do that in America. Like that's a weird thing for a lot of people in Western countries to think about. And I just was like, yeah, this is another example of how out of touch I am with how people look at technology in the West.
Well, what I was thinking, like listening to her, is that I'm just out of touch with Thai social media celebrities. Like, I'm kind of a YouTube addict and a Twitter addict. And so I know a lot of prominent people on YouTube and Twitter, at least in the fields that I'm interested in. But I really don't know like Thai people on social media, like Instagram stars or prominent Thai YouTube channels. I'm just out of that loop, man.
Yeah, me too. You could stick me in a room with 10 of the most famous people in Thailand, and I'd have no idea who they are.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's our detriment. I think that's our fault.
Oh, yeah.
I think we should probably work on that. But
our bad, no doubt.
But Sueching is definitely one of the legit ones. She knows her stuff, and she's puts out some really good content. So thanks again for coming on, and she gave the address of where you can find her online. So check out her stuff because it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, Sueching. We appreciate it.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or leave, where one of us surprises the other with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love, loathe, or hate so much about living here that we're going to leave. So this week, man, it's up to you.
All right, Greg, I got one word for you.
Okay.
Signage. In general, the quality of signs in Thailand. Like, you're in a mall and you're trying to find something, or it could include on the road. I guess I thought signage was more self-explanatory than you take it to be. But it's like you're in a mall and you're trying to find, like, let's say a bathroom. And so, of course, you're looking for the signs.
Right.
You don't have a take? Because I've got a take, so maybe I assumed that you also had a take.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a time where it's become bad enough for me to have an opinion, but it never has. I mean, I expect a little bit of sort of English thrown in there because it's not their native languages, and I do hate that that when they're making an important sign, they don't often consult a native speaker. But for the most part, no, I think I love it because I think they do a pretty good job with signage around Bangkok.
Okay, this is fascinating because I think signage in Thailand is genuinely really bad. So I'm somewhat shocked after all these years you haven't had like bad signage experiences. Now, like, first off, your point is very well taken that obviously a lot of times when they do have English, it's not totally correct. And if they had consulted like any native speaker, like an 8-year-old child, then they could have fixed like the English.
Right, just get some random pothead dreadlock hippie from Khao San Road and give him 500 baht, and he'll probably put out something better than a lot of the signs.
That is definitely true, but actually that is not my complaint. So my complaint is not, okay, they have poorly translated English. I just think signage, I mean, and again, it's like, since you disagree with me, now I'm beginning to doubt myself a little bit, or at least maybe I'll ask our listeners what they think. But for the whole time I've been in Thailand, I just have this general opinion that signage is like subpar. Like, and to me, this is a general theme in Thailand where I just can't rely on the signs. For example, I was just in Icon Siam with actually our buddy Paul, the guy who led us around Tonglor, and we were trying to find there's a bar there. Now I forget what it's called, but there's like a balcony bar that overlooks the river. And the signs were like really confusing. And like the signs appear to be pointing up to like a higher level. And then those escalators were blocked. And then like we went back and we're trying to read the sign. And then we went the wrong direction. And then finally we realized it was like straight ahead. And both Paul and I were discussing, this is Thailand. It's like, the quality of signs is bad.
Interesting. I don't have that take. I think there are specific places or instances where the signage is bad due to a quirk in the geography, or like it's a 2D sign and they're trying to point you around a corner or something. But I don't think it's fair to say that all signage in Bangkok or Thailand is bad. I think they do,
well, certainly
compared to a lot of other countries, they do a pretty good job, I would think.
Interesting. We're just going to have to disagree on this. And I'm certainly not saying all signs in Thailand are bad. But I am trying to make the claim, based on my experience, that in general, the quality of signs in Thailand is worse than certainly the states where I'm from. But I've traveled in Asia. I've been to Japan many times. And Japanese signs certainly have less English on them. But I just didn't seem to have a problem. Like, it's like, at the very least, there'd be a bathroom symbol, which I could read, even if I couldn't read the Japanese. And when I was, like, I've been to Osaka, Kyoto, Tokyo, and, like, finding my way around, at least in Japan, I felt like I could trust the signs.
Interesting.
But I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way about Bangkok.
I will say I have two very specific gripes about signage in Bangkok. One of them is that the road names are often not spelled consistently. So, like, you're driving down the street and it'll say Sathon for Sathon. You're like, okay. And then the next sign will say Sarthorn, like Sartorn.
Yeah.
Like someone figure this out. Like, get some communication going between departments here. And
agree with that. Yeah, but I mean, so you're right. The translation is not good.
Yeah. And the second big pet peeve I have is, those brown signs, like the cultural, architectural, or historical signs that are placed all around the city. There's thousands of them, and they're easy to miss. I think that people should pay those a lot more attention because they're often really good. But the English on them it's readable and it's understandable, but it's not great. And I think if you're making a citywide project that deals with the history of the city and these iconic things that you want to mark as historically important, and it's aimed specifically at English-speaking foreigners, you need to hire an English person to sort that out. You don't want to sort of put out this crappy English. By the way, it's my dream. If anyone knows who to contact, I will take on this project. It'll probably take months and months of work, but I am willing to rewrite every one of those brown signs in Bangkok for the good of the city. So those are my pet peeves about signage.
I have a theory about this problem, and my theory is there are a lot of Thais whose English is really good, and because it's really good, they think it's perfect. And this is a problem. This is a problem. And what I've learned, I mean, my Thai is not very good, but I have taken this to heart. Even if my Thai got 500% better, I would never publish anything in Thai without having a native speaker edit it.
No, I wouldn't even think of it.
I have some students that, when they speak English, it's very good, and they basically sound close to a native speaker. Like, you're like, wow, you're 99% there. But then when they write essays, they make grammar errors that native speakers would never make. So it's like, so I think that I think the lesson is, I know that we've had linguists on the show who could confirm this, but I think it's quite hard to reach native speaker level. It's quite difficult.
That goes both ways too. My spoken Thai is all right, but my written Thai is for shit. Like, I can't do anything.
Right. No doubt. Well, I'm going to say loathe on the signs.
I'm going to say love, because they've never given me any problems, and I think it's sort of a cute cultural quirk that you kind of smile and go, English, most of the time. There are certain points where I think they should take it a bit more seriously, but overall, love.
Well, you're entitled to your wrong opinion. I'll just say that. I support your right. I support your right to have a wrong opinion, sure. And I'm sure our listeners will support me. Thank you.
Okay.
So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Atlan for lending us his support at the show shout-out level. And Greg, what did you find out about Atlan?
Well, as it turns out, what I do, Ed, with these patrons who support us, who very generously support us at this level, I write them an email and I say, hey, thanks for the support. Please tell me a bit about yourself so I can read something about you on the air. And I wrote this email to Atlan, but he never got back to me. Yeah, so I don't really know what to say about him. So I started doing some research. And I think maybe he is, I got into Wikipedia, and I think he might be one of 4 people named Atlan. that I found on Wikipedia. One of four main
Interesting.
people.
Interesting.
So let me read them off to you and see which one you think he might be. So the first one, his name is Atlan. He is a singer born in 1968. He is a French singer, songwriter, and producer. I looked up his picture. He looks sort of like a cut rate Sting.
Wow. Okay, could be him.
Could be him. Yeah, could be him. The second one is Henri Atlan, and born in 1931. He is a French-Algerian biophysicist and philosopher.
Well, I got to say, that's a pretty cool thing, to be a French-Algerian biophysicist and philosopher. I hope this is the Atlan who now listens to the show.
Well, yeah, and I looked up his picture too. And if you went on Jeopardy and said, this man is a French-Algerian biophysicist and philosopher, and someone drew a picture, they would draw this guy. Like, he looks like a French-Algerian biophysicist and philosopher.
That's great.
So it might be him. Maybe he's stretching out. Maybe he wants to learn a bit about Bangkok. The third one, his name is Joe Atlan, born 1989. He is a Spanish musician, and he looks kind of like Kenny G.
Well, okay, that sounds cool. Young guy, young musician. That's cool.
He's got to get rid of those long curly hair. Maybe I'm just jealous of his hair. I don't know. But and the last one, and this is where I'm placing my money. This is where I think Atlan from DC Comics. He is an ice wizard.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I looked up a picture of this guy in the DC universe, and he's a giant ice wizard sitting on a throne of ice with a long ice beard and an ice staff that looks like a bolt of lightning. So I'm thinking, I would like that Atlan to be one of our supporters.
I got to be honest, all four of those Atlans are pretty cool. They all sound like cool people.
Yeah, man, if they could combine into one, like, philosopher, musician, ice wizard, oh, badass.
Maybe it's all the same. Maybe it's all the same guy. Maybe there's only one Atlan.
Maybe. And he's a supporter of our show. Maybe he's the most badass guy out there.
All right. Well, I hope so. Anyway, thank you, Atlan. Yeah,
thanks, Atlan. That's great. We appreciate your support. You never got back to us with some information, but we hope you're one of those four guys, or maybe all four of them. Or one guy just pretending to be four different guys. Whatever.
That's right.
But either way, we appreciate your support. Thanks, buddy.
No doubt. Before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our lovely patrons. As you know, we don't run ads. We don't have sponsors, so we really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. If you want to learn more, just head to bangkokpodcast.com/support. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We are very polite, and if you write, we will answer.
And you can also find us online, where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. That is you. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I'm BKK Greg. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you back here next week.
Absolutely.
Heart attack. We've actually been lucky. We've only had to redo like one episode.
Yeah, I think that's right. Right.
Season 2, we had to do them all the time because we had like bootlegged equipment. But this time we're good.